I think green walls are really worth it, and I'm going to show you today why I think so. Okay? Before we jump into it, I just want to explain to you that I personally, together with my team, we've installed different kind of green walls in different areas. So I'm going to share my own experience with you. So I think it's an amazing way of renovating buildings, especially in urban areas, because in urban areas, we lack nature. We've designed our urban areas mainly around traffic. So we have way more roads and air pollution, and it's very important to bring nature and biodiversity back. That's why I believe green walls are really worth it. But what's important is to know what type of green walls to use and how to install it correctly. So today, I'm going to talk about the main two different types of green walls that we have, which is hydroponic, which is a way of doing green walls without using soil. And then there's soil-based green walls. And I'm going to go into the different kind of construction and the maintenance, because maintenance is super important. If you do design a green wall well, then you will reduce the maintenance significantly. And believe me, we've made that failure and we learned from it. So first of all, let's check out hydroponic. So as I mentioned, hydroponic is a way of growing plants in the natural world without using soil, because as you know, normally plants grow in soil where they get the nutrients from the soil. But there is another way of growing plants, which is called hydroponic. So instead of the roots growing in soil, they actually grow in water, right? So, but what's important when plants grow in water is that they actually have nutrients, because in soil there is nutrients, but in water there's not nutrients. So when you do hydroponic, the difference is that you need to add nutrients to the irrigation, to the water. Now, this is just to explain to you how hydroponic works, but obviously in a vertical garden or a green wall as we know it, you cannot have the roots growing water. So what do? So first, I'm going to draw explain to you the construction on a hydroponic system, how it works. So if we have a building here, and this is the wall of the building, and if we want to build a hydroponic vertical garden on it, then first of all, we need to build another wall. We cannot just put the plants on the existing facade, because the water will damage the facade. This is very important, okay? So it's so important that I'm gonna mark this detail in red, okay? Because it's important that you understand. A lot of people think that vertical gardens will damage the facade. Yeah, that is correctly, but only if you attach the plants to the wall, which you shouldn't. So this, my friends, is a profile. So this is a profile, like this is this can be a metal tube it can be aluminum or galvanized steel, right? So this is what this is. And then this basically, from a front perspective, what you do if we're looking at the wall from the front, you are placing these steel bars about 40 centimeters apart. So those are the steel bars, and then the facade would be here, right? So this is your facade, and this is on the facade, you want to make that. So you place these bars. This is looking at it in a section. So here we have the different floor plans. Now, when you put these steel bars, and then on top of that steel bar, you need to put a board that basically will insulate from water. So we use PVC boards. So this is a PVC board that goes on top of these steel bars. And in this section, it would just be right on this layer. Okay? And then you basically connect it to the steel bar. You put the connections there. Every 40 centimeter or so, you make a connection point. Okay? So now what you have is that you have a ventilated air gap between your garden and the facade. So actually the air from outside, because these bars are placed apart from each other, the air can easily go between them and then come back out. So this is super important when you do vertical gardens. You have to have this ventilated facade behind so you don't damage the existing structure. Now, what goes on top of this is interesting. This is where you have different options. So one option that a lot of people have been using is this textile. So this is a textile that is very strong. It's very difficult to rip this apart. I can use all my force, but I really cannot rip this apart. And it's so strong and it's so good because the roots are very strong. So on top of this layer, which is a PVC board, we add 2 layers of this textile. And then the plants grow in between these 2 layers, right? And what happens is that we actually irrigate this textile. We add the water to the textile, which also increases nutrients, and then the roots grow in between this, and they start absorbing the water from the textile. So as horizontal hydroponic, where you have to grow the plants in water, in green walls, vertical gardens, we grow them inside this textile that absorbs the water. Okay? So then there's also another option. So if you would do a soil-based vertical garden, then you would need a different type of textile. And I have an example for you here. So you can buy these different kind of textiles that are pre-made, and they already have these pockets. So you would basically fill these pockets with the soil and put the plants in there. And these textiles are designed very specifically that they're breathable. And they actually also have a very, very good way of being attached to the wall. And see, behind it, you have a layer of plastic. And here you have fabric. So this plastic avoids any moisture from the vertical garden going back to the existing facade. But once again, it's super important that you make sure, either if you do hydroponic or soil, it's very important, once again, that you make sure that you have this ventilated facade, that you allow the air to go between the wall, because even if you do have plastic behind the textile that you're using, there can still be humidity created behind the wall. So super important. Now, based on my experience, what's more easier to install? Is it a hydroponic system or is it a soil-based system? And the question is, the answer is soil-based. So hydroponic system depends on, you can also find this kind of textile for hydroponic, which is more modular, but it's extremely expensive. So if you want to do a green wall that is affordable or okay price, then you probably most likely end up using this kind of textile. Now, this textile comes in really, really long pieces, and installing it is quite customized. So it takes more time. And it does require a PVC board for it to be attached to. While a soil-based system like this that already has plastic, a vapor barrier integrated into it, doesn't require the PVC board because you can attach this directly to the steel bar itself, right? So based on my experience, installing this kind of system is easier and it's more modular. However, during the design phase, it requires more designing and planning because these systems have to be, dimensioned and customized to your specific projects. So that's about the construction of the vertical gardens. So now let's talk about the maintenance. See, maintenance is super important. There are different ways for you to save money on maintenance. The first and most important thing is the kind of plants that you choose. See, there are certain plants that require more maintenance. They flower a lot and then they drop their flowers. Every season, they change as well, and they drop their leaves. But then there's certain plants, mostly trees, that doesn't require that much maintenance. They don't change that much. And actually, from our experience, we've learned that trees in general have less maintenance than plants and flowers. So you want to make sure you have a good maintenance, a good plant selection. And also what's very important is that you use as much as you can local and native plants, because local and native plants are already adapted to your climate, so they will most likely be able to thrive much better than you bringing plants from outside. So plant selection, super important. You should, consult with some experts about what plants to use. Now, in soil-based green walls like this one, when you have to replace plants, because this is also the reality, sometimes some plants needs to be replaced. It is much easier to replace plants when you have custom pockets versus when you have a big textile like this. So if you have to replace plants here, you basically just take out the plants and you can just put it back in there. But if you're replacing plants in a purely hydroponic system, then you need to cut out the plant from its pocket. Then you need to create another pocket for that new plant. It requires more time. That's all I'm saying. But the thing is, in the hydroponic systems, my experience is also the plants grow extremely fast and a lot, almost too much. So it's very important that you don't give them too much nutrients, maybe in the beginning, but with time, you basically need to reduce their nutrients, because the thing is, the more they grow, the more maintenance you have. So based on my experience, the soil-based system has much less maintenance than the hydroponic system. However, in the end of the day, they both work, and it depends a little bit what's available where you are in your area, what kind of system you prefer to use as well. So I've used both, and now I'm using more actually a semi-hydroponic system, which is very much like this. But what we do is that we actually still add nutrients to this, because even though there is soil in these pockets, what happens is that after 6 months or to 1 year, the plants consume all the nutrients in the soil, so there's no nutrients left. So if you don't add nutrients every now and then, maybe every year 4 or 5 times you add nutrients to your irrigation, if you don't do that, eventually your plants are not going to get the kind of nutrients that they want, and they start slowly dying. So actually what I prefer to use now is a semi-hydroponic system. So once again, to wrap it up for you, green walls are definitely worth it. I mean, we are living in urban areas where there is no natural world. We are seeing the amount of air pollution that our cities are causing, and this is really affecting our health and our well-being, And not only that, there's so many people now suffering from mental challenges, and it is very well proven that the natural world helps you to build a stronger mind and a stronger health. And this is the base of everything, So if we really want to cultivate a healthy generations, we need to bring nature back. There's no question about that. But many people argue that there's no space in urban areas, so we cannot bring nature back. But green walls and vertical gardens are a great example of how we can bring nature back. And they are very early. It's, this innovation is still very early. They're going to just keep improving and improving. I mean, during just the past 4 years, I've seen so much innovation happen in this market. So it's really a good time to start implementing it now. If you have the possibility to start already on something small, I definitely suggest get started, because that's really how you learn about it. And if you really want to learn more about how you can get started, how to build your own projects, then I really recommend that you join our academy program. We have an online academy where we have students from all over the world that joins us, and we are providing them with all the knowledge that we learned during the past 15 years. And not only that, every month we get together. We have Q&A sessions where people bring their projects, and we are advising them on how to take good decisions. We're looking at their designs. We're helping them with their construction. So if you really want to dive deep into this, then join the Bioautonomy Online Academy and learn more.